Bill, why don't you introduce yourself to us?
I'm Judge Bill Gonzales. I'm your family court judge in Department F. I've been serving there for the last 5.5 years. I was appointed by our governor in 2009, having gone through a judicial selection process where your experience and your credentials both inside and outside of the courtroom are vetted under close scrutiny. Once you get through that process, then you get to meet with the governor, who at the time was an attorney, his chief of staff was an attorney, and his legal counsel obviously was an attorney, and you get vetted again. I was one of the top 3 candidates coming out of the judicial selection process. Again, meeting with the governor, we had a wonderful conversation about my experience, again, not only in the courtroom, but outside in our community, which is very important also. And a couple days later, I got a call from the governor and says, "Bill, we want to put you on the bench," to which I gladly accepted, and I've been serving there, and I'm back on the ballot in November 4th, and I'm out here in the community asking for your support. Again, for me today, it's an honor and a privilege to be here, and I appreciate you making the accommodations. When you're on the campaign trail, you know, my days, 6 days out of the week are, 12, 14-hour days. There's times when I'm on the bench, sometimes until like 5:36, and then I'm out in community events doing things. And there are times on a Monday morning that I wake up at 6 in the morning to do algebra with my 13-year-old daughter because I've had no other time to do it, and it's something important. And I can tell you, and many of you may know, getting a 13-year-old up at 6 in the morning to do algebra is probably not the most exciting thing for a teenager. So that's a little bit about my background, and if there's some questions you'd like to ask, I'd be happy to answer them.
Well, just by way of disclosure, I mean, Bill, you and I have known each other since well before you were appointed to the bench in 2009. Right now, I don't think I have I'm almost positive I have no active cases in your department. I try and stay out of the deliberation process when I do have an active case, just to avoid the much vaunted appearance of impropriety, but I do not, my family law practice has dwindled over the years, intentionally so. So I don't think there are any conflicts to my knowledge, and you please correct me if I'm wrong.
You know, during the 5.5 years that I've been on the bench, I don't recall ever seeing you not only in my department, but I had never seen you over at family court. So there's no cases that you have in front of me, as far as I know. It would be a pleasure to have a competent attorney come in and present a case, some of your background.
And if I knew one, I'd send him down to your department. So,
well, if you don't mind, I'd like to just jump in on something. I know that you have some questions, but it may help somewhat. You know, as a judicial officer, or a candidate now that I'm running for re-election, many people will come into organizations like AAG and tell you all the things that they would do within the community on, in their position, either as a sheriff or a judge or a congressman, and what they would do for the Asian community. And I'm in a position where I don't have to do that, because you could see my history. And there's many candidates that they'll come out to different organizations and seek your support. Once they're on the bench, you never see them again. They're not really, their heart's not into the community. They just want your support so they can be elected into office. For me, prior to being elected, I've been out in the community. It's my DNA. The first time I ran in 2002, 2003 for a judicial position, Oscar Goodman, who is a maniac on the campaign trail, he saw me out there and he appointed me to the Housing Authority, and I was the vice chair for 4 years. And I was lobbying for affordable homes for our seniors, for our vets, for disabled members of our community, for those less fortunate. It took there were months that I spent 40, 60 hours a month doing that, and it was pro bono. It was something to provide to the community. I've been a Boy Scout leader in our community for going on probably 16, 17 years. I'm on the advisory board for the law school clinics. I've been doing that for probably 5.5 years. All of my law clerks as a judge have been from the Boyd School of Law. I support our local community, and I provide opportunities for minorities in my department. So it's not something that I would say this is what I would do. My current law clerk, who's been with me for a year now, speaks Mandarin. She's Chinese American. The one two before that speaks Farsi. She's Persian American. My first one was African American, and I had another female. My current marshal is a black person. My first marshal was half Filipina. I've had court staff who's a minority, so it's something that from my perspective that I provide to the community, because when you're traveling up the road to success, and I've been very fortunate living, our American dream here, half the time you have to look behind and provide opportunities for others. We actually have a program through the law school. It's called WEYAS. It's through the Latino Bar Association, where each year we pair a high school student, a university student, a college student, and either an attorney or a judge, and we mentor them. And we start at the high school level. Those who work under my mentorship, I bring them into the courtroom. And I said, look, I don't come from a rich family. I've worked really, really hard. But the fact that I'm here means that you could be here also. There's no reason why you can't be a doctor. You can't be, a judge, an attorney. There's so many opportunities if you just follow the American dream. And for me, the American dream has been, when I've been married 27 years as an aside. My oldest son had his 26th birthday on Monday. I have 3 other children, 14, 24, and 18. But when I first got married, I worked full-time for General Telephone, the predecessor to Verizon. I was a techie guy. I repaired computer systems, telephone systems when they started the digital age. And they had a program that if you worked full-time, they would pay for your college education if it was business related. So I worked full-time, I went to school at night, I know how to work really hard. I maintained a 3.6 GPA. From there I got a scholarship to go to the Monterey Institute of International Studies. In addition to my law degree, I have a master's degree in international management. Because of my telecommunications background, my thesis was with a Norwegian telecommunications company. We did a thesis with 3 Norwegian students and 2 French students for a year. Additionally, 60% of the student body were from outside of the United States. So I understand the importance of culture on the bench and in our community. And the thing that I would say is not only having the experience, which is very important, but the compassion. And when people come into our courtroom and they're dealing with custody issues and divorce, those are really difficult issues. And as a judge, you need to provide an atmosphere that will help these persons resolve, their conflicts and get them out of court as quickly as possible. And that's something that I try to do every single day. And again, it's been, for me, a joy, and I still pinch myself that, coming from my humble circumstances, that I was appointed by a governor to serve in this very important position, and that I can come back to our community every day and serve and do the best that I can.
Bill, based on your extensive experience in the judicial system, in the criminal, in the court system, because I know you as a criminal defense attorney originally, what areas of improvement do you see, since you do have the perspective of someone who was in front of the bench and now someone who has been sitting behind it for the last 6 years?
Well, what I would tell you, my experience in the courtroom is for the last 15 and a half years, I've been in the courtroom on a daily basis. For the last 10 and a half years, it's been in family court. And as you know, I represented children down there in the juvenile delinquency court in front of Judge William O'Voy. I represented 2,000 children down there, ranging from ages to 21. You're still in the juvenile system if a crime is committed prior to your 18th birthday up until you're 21. And those children had a lot of issues that you would see in a divorce type action or custody. Some of these children have mental health issues or mental health issues in the home, substance abuse, domestic violence is a very serious issue in our community, educational struggles, mental health issues, and representing those children. I've had a lot of experience with treatment providers, with doctors, looking at individual education plans through the school, and that breadth of knowledge is very helpful when you're dealing with these children. Now, for the last 5.5 years, I'm dealing with the best interests of the children, but they're generally the voice that's not in the courtroom. I'm dealing with the parents and attorneys arguing about what's best, but having that experience, and I would submit having the experience of raising 4 children of my own and seeing what a teenage mind is capable. And on a good day, a teenage mind acts like a teenage mind. On a bad day, it's probably a little bit above the level of a hamster. I mean, it's all about feelings and joy and things that you would want them to focus on. They're not that excited about. But having that experience of being in the courtroom every single day and understanding the dynamics, I think one of the most important things in family court, or any court for that matter, is that as a judge, you cannot allow the attorneys to attack each other, to talk over each other. You have to create an atmosphere that people feel comfortable and they feel safe. And that's my job as a judge. And most people, 85% of the people, when they come into the courtroom, if you talk common sense, you present reasonable options for them, you allow them to participate in the process and make these most important decisions, you can get them out of court. And as you know, John, the cost of litigation for families is very high. And that's money they could use for a college education fund, to provide opportunities, extracurricular activities, sports. That's really important. And then there's 15% that come in, their heart's not in it. They're just in there because they're bitter, they want to make everybody else miserable, and those persons, you figure creative ways how to address them. I'll give you 2 examples. Back in October of last year, there were some parties and they were fighting over something pretty minor, and they just would not agree. And so I said, fine, this is what we're going to do. I'm going to put this on the afternoon of December 31st, and we're going to come in here and we're going to resolve this issue. They went outside. 15 minutes later, they came back and says, Judge, we have a resolution, because they didn't want to be in court on New Year's Eve. And so you kind of think outside of the box. If you have somebody that's just being stubborn and unreasonable, how you get to those type of individuals, you say, look, I determine what's reasonable in this courtroom. And if I make a determination that somebody's acting unreasonably, then not only do you pay your attorney's fees, but I can award attorney's fees and you'll pay for the other person's attorney's fees. Many people come in and they're willing to fight and make unreasonable arguments if they only have to pay for their attorney. But if they start thinking, well, I'm going to have to maybe pay for the other person's attorney, a lot of times they kind of tone things down and you get them to some more of a reasonable discussion.
Pretty good, pretty good. You said you were appointed by the governor.
Yes,
So I'm pretty sure it's based on merits, accomplishment, education, and other stuff. Would you rather advocate being appointed rather than running for an election because of the politics and everything? It's not based, running an election is based on merits. If you have money, you can run for anything. So would you rather advocate for just being appointed rather than running for an election?
That is a wonderful question. I'm glad that you asked that question. Here in the state of Nevada, if you have 10 years as a licensed attorney, not necessarily practicing in the courtroom for 10 years, but if you have a minimum of 10 years and you pay $150, that's all you need to be on the ballot for district court. That's it. No other requirements. When you go through the judicial selection process, the person who oversees that process is the chief judge of the Nevada Supreme Court. During the time that I went through that process, it was Chief Judge Hardesty. Then you have attorneys from the state bar, you have attorneys from the governor's office, and then you have members of the community at large, an equal amount from the state bar and an equal amount from the governors. And you fill out probably a 50, 60-page application, and it goes over all your experience in the courtroom, the number of cases that you've handled, the type of cases, how extensive your experience is inside of the courtroom, and they also look at your community experience. And you can't go in there and you can't fake it. You can't say, I've done so many jury trials, because that's a matter of record. You can't say, I've been in court I've handled 5,000 cases, because all that's a matter of record. So you can't really fake it. And once you get through that strict scrutiny, you go to the governor. The governor cannot appoint anybody who hasn't gone through that type of a scrutiny. And then from there you go and you're scrutinized again. what happens, and I think this is how it should be in every case, once you're appointed, and there is a slight difference, once you're appointed, you have to run a retention election in the next election cycle. So in 2010, I ran to retain my seat, and I won that. But I think the better way is called a Missouri plan, that you have the person appointed, and then you have an up-down vote. So if you have somebody who's not doing a job, not showing up for work, making poor decisions, you can get that person off of the bench, and then all the politics, it puts you in very uncomfortable, somewhat sometimes very unethical, well, not, I guess the ethical part of it, you have a lot of people who are supporting you that, you know, you could raise money and you could be, you know, off of the bench just because somebody has a name who's more well known, or they have more money, or they have a lot of people supporting them. That is, it's a very difficult, and as even discussing it, it just makes it very difficult. That's the worst part of being a judge, is having to go out and campaign to retain your seat. I don't think we should ever do that. And if you look at the founding fathers, when they formed our government, they talked about, you know, should we have a king? That didn't really work well in the first place. They talked about how do you get representation at the local levels, so you have a strong federal government. But the thing that they always agreed on, and there was no discussion, the federal judges, keep them out of politics. Give them a lifetime appointment, so when they're making those very difficult decisions and telling the President of the United States, look, you're violating the Constitution, they're not going to have the fallback of the politics, that they can make those decisions, and that gives you a separation of power. So again, to answer your question, I think we should have an appointment, somebody who's vetted and they have the experience to sit on the bench, but have a retention election, so if you have somebody who's not doing their job, you can get them off.
Should we need a legislation to change that? I mean,
it has to be, I believe it's a change of the Constitution to do that, and so you have to bring it up to the voters, and the voters a lot of time, they think, well, I don't want to give up my right to vote on the judges, and as you know, most voters do not take the time to go through this process that we're going through here today, and they don't know about the judges, and they're not making an informed decision, and there's probably 25–30% drop off, you know, after they vote for governor or president, that they don't vote for the judges. I would prefer that than somebody just voting because it's a male or a female, or because a person has a name that they like.
Okay. Any other questions from the panel? We good?
I know, let's say, Bill, is a public defender, and he did help us, on some issues, some problems. And he did help us, I appreciate your help.
Yeah, we know each other, as I knew you as a public defender originally as well, before you transferred down to juvie court with Judge Boyd. So, well, good. I mean, you have a long-standing track record of giving back to the community and working hard while you're on the bench, and unfortunately now you're doing all of that and campaigning. So we will let you get back out there to the lovely 90-degree weather. It's actually a rather moderate afternoon.
It actually feels like 100 in here, but
well, that's because you're under the gun. We're perfectly relaxed over here. We're not sweating at all.
But anyways, I guess in ending, I just appreciate you taking this time. I know this is a long day. You've had congressional candidates out here this morning. I appreciate you allowing me to come in here today, and I appreciate all you do in our community, and it's an honor for me. And if you would have told me, Bill, come in here at midnight to meet with us, I would gladly do it, because I appreciate not only your support, but what you're doing in our community. Again, I'm Judge Bill Gonzales. For those of you on the other side of the videotape here, it would be my privilege and honor, and I'd greatly appreciate your vote for Judge Bill Gonzales, Department F, in November.